Peace to the tribe, peace to the family. Welcome to the Harrison's Book Club, and we are back with another video and another episode of Super Genesis. I know we've been on here talking to you a lot through the initiates, so now we came here back to be on here on our weekend with our biblical shit, man. So here we are. I'm here with my co-host. I'm gonna go ahead and let him introduce himself.
What up, everybody? It's Ja Breeze, not Breeze anymore. It's Ja Breeze. um, and yeah, this chapter 19 to 22 of Genesis. Um, Another episode, another presentation by the Hero Fence Book Club associated with the Initiates of the Flame. And yeah, we're really excited to share this information.
Yeah, we are here. This information just goes along with everything we've been studying, along with deeper core information regarding the Tarot, regarding to Kabbalah, regarding the Tree of Life, something we're going to be discussing today. And I know we're in the chapters of 1922, but it's certain aspects of these stories that help us understand the Hebraic paths through the Tree of Life by doing path working, also learning how to deal with self, also learning the ins and outs of thyself, because the goal is to know thyself. So we can never forget about that. So let's really get into it and let's break into these chapters, because I feel like it's so much that we miss when we read the Bible.
For sure. For sure. All right, so without further ado, first chapter I'm going over is chapter 19. And it begins with two men arriving at the gate of Sodom, and they find Lot sitting at the entrance of the city. And when Lot sees them, he immediately bows his head to the ground, and asks them and basically begs them to rest at his house for the night. Um, their intent, these two men, their intent was to be in the streets all night, because these two men are two angels of the Lord, and they're there to investigate Sodom and Gomorrah, to see if they're really going to go through with the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Um, but Lot, being remotely tapped in, was like, "Oh shit, please come into my house." And he offered them, to come into his home. Shortly after this, the people of Sodom asked the man to be brought out so that they may know them. The wicked folks threatened to deal with Lot worse than the man who he brought into his home. So basically, the natives of Sodom was just like, who is these new people in our town? And if you don't let us meet them, we're gonna do you worse than we're gonna do them.
Yeah, they gonna do them all right, gentlemen. And ladies. So I just want you to get that clear point. It's in the
Yeah,
name. You know,
yeah, they
we
do
might
live
bring
in
it
the
up, we
park.
might not. It's a little graphic for y'all, but
Hey, it's in the name. They live in the
man,
city called Sodom.
right. It's. I think that's something that's overlooked. Some people see it, some people don't, and just if you don't know the story, you're just not gonna get that. You're just gonna think it's a name, and a lot of people don't know what sodomy is. So,
Hmm.
but I
Yeah,
digress.
yeah. Go Google it. I digress as well. Um, After that, we had basically like Genesis chapter 19, verse 8. And what was crazy, Lot offered his daughters instead of the men. Um, and at this point, Lot was outside of his house, like, please go away. And the men snatched Lot back into the house, and because those men were angels in disguise, they were able to strike the people of Sodom with blindness, so they could not find the door to Lot's home. Um, the man told Lot, "Of everyone in your family, tell them to leave, for the Lord has sent us, and he will destroy this place." When Lot warned his sons in law and other family members, they made a mockery of him. When the morning came, the men told Lot, "It is the time for you to go." And when he lingered, the Lord was merciful and removed him from the city. Lot was instructed to flee to a nearby city, the city of Zoar, and not to look back. So basically, everybody that was kin to Lot was just like, "You tripping." You know, the Lord was like, "Well, if they ain't gonna go, I told you, and you know better. So do as you told." It's kind of like one of them things. When the
And
sun
plus,
rose,
and
oh, go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead, bro. Go ahead, bro.
No,
My
you
fault.
good. Go ahead.
So and like, and the whole thing is that like we gotta realize that like they're trying to save the pure, and it's also just remember our conversation with the Lord and Abram. We really want to focus on those conversations a lot because we have to remember what Abram and Lot represent. So I'm gonna let bro finish his passage real quick so we can get into that.
For sure. Um, when the sun rose over the city, the Lord made it rain fire and brimstone. Lot's wife looked back at the destruction as they fled Sodom, and she was turned into a pillar of salt. Now, the symbology of Lot's wife turning into a pillar of salt is when you make it out of a dire situation, a really difficult situation. Um, it's important to fully release it and let it go, and let that be the past. Um, because if you were to take basically where you're headed, your old self cannot be accommodated in that new space that you headed to. And the fact that Lot's wife looked back is kind of symbolizing her um, wanting to stay in their current situation instead of moving towards the unknown or potential better situation. So she turned into a pillar of salt, and salt is kind of like something um, in old times a preservative. If you put salt on meat, you are able to store it without refrigerating it. But yeah, the next chapter. Oh, next slide. And this is from verse 29. And Abraham got up early that morning to the place where he stood before the Lord, and he looked towards Sodom and Gomorrah, and behold, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass when God destroyed the cities of the plain that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow. When he overthrew the cities in which Lot dwelt, Genesis 19:29. So basically, the Lord is remembering Lot as kin to Abraham. And for the out of respect and love for Abraham, he saved Abraham's kin.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
that's what it's really about. Um, and I mean, I think this would be a good spot because I know you wanted to mention like the difference in symbology of like what Abraham represents and Lot represents.
Yeah, cause see, like Lot, he represents the spiritual consciousness, and I'm sorry, not Lot. He represents the natural consciousness, sense
Yeah,
consciousness, while
yeah,
Abraham represents spiritual, right? But the spiritual has the understanding of the holy three, the holy trinity, the holy triangle, the body, mind, and spirit. See, while Natural consciousness is just where the body and the physical senses. So it's just like think about the tree of life, right? We have the three super nine triangles, right? You have the 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, and the 8, 9, 10. Well, the 1, 2, 3 is just like that's the perfect, that's above the bits. Anything below the bits is really just like illusion, the material world, right? Different aspects of it. So this higher understanding in this spiritual sense is like a connection with the one. But like being stuck inside the two where Lot is, for him to advance and being him to go through these other spirits of consciousness, he has to connect with the three, the understanding. So as we get through it, it's just we want to explain the tree of life because that's the one tree that was just like forgotten. We just talked about the tree of
Mm-hmm.
knowledge and good and evil, but like some
Mm-hmm.
reason it's like the tree of life is like forgotten. So that's
Mm-hmm.
something that we want to focus on too because that is a representation of us.
Shay. Lot, because of fear, left Zoar, which is Zoar is the mountains that the Lord told him to flee to during the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Um, he left Zoar and went to live in the mountains, and he and his two daughters dwelt inside of the cave. From this point, the daughters of Lot devised a plan to get their fathers drunk from wine and lay with him on separate occasions to preserve his seed. And so this symbolizes how how wickedness seeks to continue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's almost like the fruits of disobedience, the fruits of being a servant of sense consciousness, body consciousness. Um, that's what Lot represents. And since there was no other avenue, i.e., spirituality, for him to be expressed through, and him submitting to like sense consciousness, therefore, his wife and his children will be up under that same um, I guess tutelage, for lack of better words. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what's happening here.
My thing is like he was so stuck on like just trying to like live and like get and also like what's thing about the deep occult magic into this, right? Because even in Egypt, they always said that the pharaohs were really just someone in their past life, like when they have a child, and they'll be worried of like when they was taking out certain pharaohs and killing them, they was worried that certain pharaohs will come back in that child's body or in that person. So like, think about the deep occult and just the mythology to certain things and certain stories.
Mhm.
But I just thought of that. And I was just like, man, like the life that bro was trying to like really like bro's like fuck it, I'm gonna come back.
Right, back from the dead, next lifetime. um, this chapter represents how one can fall into despondency because of a lack of spiritual practices. The initial reason for moving to the plains of Sodom was to increase the wealth Lot gained in Egypt. So this is talking about some of the chapters before 19, where Abraham and Lot
Mhm.
both lived in the same area, and they chose to separate. And Lot chose to go somewhere where he felt that he could multiply his wealth, and Abraham basically went where God told him to go. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
it's key to point out here that in Genesis 18, the Lord and two angels visited Abraham, or I'm sorry, that's a typo. The Lord and yeah, okay, no, I'm right. I'm right. The Lord and two angels visited Abraham, which were three men, and only two angels visited Lot.
Hmm.
The
So
men
before
of
you start,
Sodom.
bro,
Oh yeah, go ahead.
so like in the passage, like you see, bro, talked about and type the lack of spiritual practices. Has there ever been a time like where like your lack of spiritual practice got you like in a bad mind state, or like you messed up on something
Mhm.
like what did it do to you when you were just like not on your practice?
I can remember times where I wasn't like aligned with my practices, and I just thought real negative about my just my life and my experience. You know, just like one of those things where it's just like just being real hard on myself, being negative, uh, wanting to just go to sleep when I get off of work, not wanting to really like deal with people. Um, and I mean, the ways that I've got out of that kind of funk is getting up in the morning every day, non-negotiable, and meditating, um, sincerely journaling how I feel about certain things, um, and not being partial to my own thoughts, you know,
Mm-hmm.
when I'm in a negative space, even when I'm in a positive space, because sometimes in your head it can sound like the greatest thing since sliced bread, but when you open up your mouth and tell somebody, you kind of feel like, damn, that wasn't delivered in the way that I thought it would have been, you know. Um, so I would say, I mean, it's all part of the alchemical change that we all go through. Sometimes we do fall off the path, but that's still a part of um, that's still a part of your experience. That's still a part of what's making you you, you know, and who you're meant to be. That's what I would say about it. What about you?
I'll say like with the whole thing, like being being in the stride, like I'll put in I'll say seven of cups debauchery, right? Or I'll put it in like the five of cups disappointment, or I could put it at the five of dis and worry. You know, like just being that type of mindset, like my mind bouncing up in those realms of consciousness, and like not found no grounding hole. So the only thing like I could say from it is just never forget your kundalini practices.
Yeah,
You know that 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 urge is always going to be there to flank like that persistence. So you just gotta find where to transfer that energy to,
hmm,
because energy can't be destroyed. So it's either transformed, or so you gotta find where to ooze it out.
yeah.
But you can go ahead and continue, dog.
Okay. The men of Sodom encompassing Lot's home, which I mean by that is circling Lot's home, um, and Lot offering his daughter symbolizes how when you are in lack of spiritual consciousness, sense consciousness pervades and will do whatever means to keep you in low vibration. So you know what I mean? It's basically kind of what we were saying. Like when we go through things, so many things pop up for you to stay at that state. You know, that's one thing I've learned. Once you get to a certain mind state, it's hard to get out of it, whether you in a negative or a positive one, or if you're in one that's in alignment with, your purpose, and the things that you enjoy, you want to do in this world. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Thanks.
real easy to stay where you at, whether you know what I mean? Whether you in a place of helping people and like helping your neighbor, providing for your family, doing what you love in the world, or being selfish, always got your hand out, um, gossiping about people. It's very easy to stay where you at, and that's why it's important. And I mean, don't get me wrong. There's going to be challenges to see how strong your resolve is where you're at, but yeah, when you're in a negative space, there's no reason to think positive, and when you're in a positive space, there's no reason to really think negative. Um, Lot offering his daughters is how humanity tries to compromise with malignant ideas. The same thing.
Also, you want to think about, we had talked about brainwaves, right? And we talked about the four brainwaves. So
Hmm.
wherever you put your energy to is what you is going to really create in your life. And now I know with them, they're in a different time period and they don't have much things as us, but we have just as more things now, and we get off by just being not somewhere that's still. And the point is to create this practice, right? Because at the end of the day, we get just deceived by sickness when most time we don't know that we could do a lot of exercises to detox our lymphatic system. Like,
Hmm.
we're just gonna have to create a PowerPoint of speaking about the tree and just showing y'all too for these next upcoming chapters, because once you get that, you just have to see the divine book of yourself. Like, we just have to pull pencil up of yourself, because it's just too cool just not to see. Because most people that when they first start getting into it, a lot of people get into astrology or tarot because they just see how it relates to the body. Like, that's the one thing that how it interests people so hard.
Hmm. Hmm. So the next point was your body is an altar or a temple, and a multitude of energies reside within it. And the battle of heaven and hell happens inside your body. You're either format, you can either format and align with consciousness that is divine or malignant. It's your choice. What happens? Okay, I kind of explained it already, but I'll just read it because it's here. What happens to Lot's wife is important because it represents when you allow sense consciousness to override spiritual consciousness. You end up in a worse situation when you preserve sense consciousness during times of divine intervention. It's kind of like say when the flood happened and basically like, okay, I'm trying to think how to say it the right way. Um, so say if Noah did not build that ark when the Lord told him that the flood was going to happen, that's akin to what Lot's wife did.
Mm.
So she got hit over the head, turned into a pillar of salt. Um,
But
choosing
this
to
is a
live.
prime example. Is like how man, the man that follows God, and you everyone in his household, they have to follow with him because they're really falling behind God.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like denying your purpose, but it's just understanding like you got a psychopath on the team, right? And or think of John D. What's related to that? If you've been doing your studies and keeping up with us and following the Substacks, right? Speaking when you think of John D, right hand to Queen Elizabeth, I bet you Queen Elizabeth was like, "Hey yo, Johnny, hey yo, Johnny, what you got for me?" Like, oh well, I was talking Uriel, you know, talked to get I hit some I drew some scribing today, this I feel like you shouldn't be doing this right now, you know, so you got to think about that. If you really tune and tap in and follow intuition, you know what you shouldn't be doing, and like if you're going against something like let's say you lactose intolerant and you know you're not supposed to be drinking milk and eating ice cream, but you eating that stuff anyway. What's happening to you? Boiling. You getting blisters. Like we got to think about some of the small things that can test the big things. Because overall, you're destroying your gut if you really
Mm-hmm.
like, not supposed to be consuming that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just thinking about that in a way of like following your guide.
Mm-hmm.
But some people just like that belt to their ass too much. So I'm gonna chill out.
Yeah, I mean, some people used to dealing with it, you know.
They don't. It's
Uh,
just most people don't got no self beyond they past and mistakes and the things. So when they try to look for something new, they don't know what is. And that's the point. When you see that new face, once you go within, it's just boom. But go ahead, big bro. I want to show something once you all finished up.
okay, okay, and then as far as Lot, again, choosing to live in a cave is a sense consciousness effect. You are lost and ultimately ruled by fear. The daughters of Lot bore children from their father. Their names was Moab and Be-Ami, um, who could represent how all levels of consciousness are created. Chapter 20.
Now with chapter 20, we got to remember some of these conversations right in the past because it really helps describe the narrative as Abraham is on his journey, especially along what his wife is doing. Because I'm telling you, man, you gotta. This is like Clyde and Bonnie, Lewis and Clark, like the way they like. Okay, we going. Okay. Like you get the way they this. You can say this is a big con right here. Like the way they on some con artistry shit with this right here.
Okay, so Abraham began to travel south to Gerar. Abraham tells his wife Sarah to tell the people of the land that she is his sister because he thought the fear of God was not in Gerar. And the king of Gerar sent for Sarah and brought her into his household. And the king of Gerar name is Abimelech. Abimelech. The Lord came to Abimelech in his dream and told him that the woman that he brought into his home is a married woman, and if he did not release her, he will, he will die. Abimelech's response was that They both said that they were siblings. And in the integrity of my heart and the innocence of my hands have I done this. After this, Abimelech confronted Abraham, and they came to an understanding. He returned Sarah and blessed him with sheep, oxen, and servants, plus 1,000 pieces of silver. I thought it was pretty interesting because Abimelech was kind of just like a stand up dude. You know what I mean? He was just like, I ain't know this. He was like, God, I ain't know this. Like, shoot, don't be pulling up on me like this.
Yeah, but it's
um,
just like, but you snatching bitches off the street, bro.
that's true. You don't know what
Like
they
you,
who they is. Yeah.
man, you didn't even take that accountability, and it's just like he's trying to spread fear of the Lord, and like I know two wrongs don't make a right, but you got to understand also the other narrative of like how people are trying to spread God through the lands.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to understand how we have high level sorcery at hand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but at the same time, it's also explaining the wickedness that is happening among like we are forgetting the pre-Adamite stories, the stories of Genesis of these people being cursed, dealing with famines, dealing with lust, and it's so many aspects that we got to realize and focal point on because within these stories they're showing us because as we progress through the Old Testament into the New and through these five books of the Torah, we're gonna be learning so much from a historical standpoint as well. But we just have to understand the metaphysics first, because then we'll never really get the actual meanings of the Enochian magic that's happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Abraham prayed unto God, and God healed Abimelech's wife and his maidservants, for the Lord has had closed up their wombs because of Abimelech taking Sarah into his house. Okay. Abraham denying his wife is a lack of faith in God. The fear of the physical world forcing Abraham to fit into society standards, the belief that he would not be harmed if he denounced the blessing given to him by God. So it's kind of like, to make it in modern terms, is when we dim our light to fit in with people, when we don't accept ourselves completely, um, just so that we can fit in, just so that we can be accepted, because of a fear of not being accepted, a fear of someone harming you. And I think that's a very important part, to regardless of what's happening, embody yourself completely and fully. Um, Now I understand it's like it's danger around. Yeah, you need to go. Um, but if it's just in a social setting, don't dim your light to make other people comfortable. Because 9 times out of 10, nobody really cares. All you doing is,
On
um,
me, on me.
yeah, all you doing is really not loving yourself at that point. But I think that's just something that to keep in mind. Now we're in chapter 21. So Isaac, the child of promise, was born. The Lord has upheld his covenant, and Isaac was circumcised at 8 days old. Isaac in Hebrew, uh, the definition is he laughs or God laughs. He will laugh, laughter, joy, singing, leaping, according to truthunity.com. The generation of spiritual consciousness brings joy and happiness, as Isaac came from the Lord and Ishmael came from flesh. Ishmael's mother was an Egyptian woman. Egypt represents sense consciousness and your lower nature. Isaac was born from basically the Lord. Um, it was more so immaculate conception, to be honest. Um, because at that point, I believe Abraham was like 99 and Sarah was 90 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, who was Ishmael, which she had borne unto Abraham, mocking. And Sarah told Abraham to make her leave so that um, Isaac will not have any competition with being his heir. So she was basically like this is my baby, and her child ain't about to take all that's inherited by my child, type of thing. And at this point, the Lord spoke to Abraham and told him to hearken to what Sarah says. And this is interesting because we hear a lot about like women don't do nothing in the Bible or say anything in the Bible, but the Lord is
Mm-hmm.
literally telling Abraham, you need to listen to your wife and do as she says. um,
Mm-hmm.
and the Lord continues and it may be hard because that is your son, and it must be done for the best. After Abraham sends Hagar off, she wanders in the wilderness of Beersheba. In Hebrew, it means a well of oath, well of seven, well of fulfillment, seventh well. And again, we see this separation happening. In the past, it was Abraham from Lot. Now it's Isaac from Ishmael. Sarah is now in a place of being conscious of the soul and how to take direction from the soul. The feminine nature in man taking an important step to fasten one's faith.
My thing is that when are we gonna like see like the divine connection that you need in your relationship? Because
Mhm,
like that is one of the key messages in this too. Because
mhm,
Sodom and Gomorrah, what was they didn't value no love, no commitment. They was doing nothing but fornication,
mhm.
so
And
I
being
mean if
sexually
you
deviant.
yeah, so if
Um,
you're out here fornicating, so with this body to body to body, I hope you know you merging all these people with yourself. Like that's
yep.
the truth in it. Like you basically saying like you marry soul tie from soul tie, and then you not cleansing all this shit off you. You not
Mhm,
like taking like 3 month break, flushing your shit out,
mhm,
steam in the
mhm,
womb, or
mhm,
drinking things for your phallus.
mhm.
So, but
No, for real. Um, so Hagar found herself without any more bread or water as they made their trip to Beersheba. Um, and she laid Ishmael up under a shrub while she cried. She felt like her and Ishmael's journey would end in death. God heard the voice of the child, and an angel came to Hagar and told her not to fear because the child will be the father of a great nation. And this is from Genesis chapter 21. And God
mhm.
opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the bottle with water and gave the lad drink. And God was with the lad, and he grew. and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took him a wife out of the land of Egypt. So it's a lot of
Mhm.
symbology here. Oops. It's a lot of symbology here. First, you have the well, which is it's like water sitting deep into the earth, and being that Ishmael's mother is basically he's half um they didn't say this yet, but he's half Hebrew and he's half Egyptian. And
Mhm.
him taking, an Egyptian wife is kind of like him being more of the flesh, him being more of the animal nature and man. Keenness, where it says he dealt in the wilderness and he became an archer, someone that hunts, someone that is a little bit more dealing with the earth. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just what the energy is.
Mhm. Mhm. There's even like been controversies and other scholars debating like with the whole historical and racial fact, like was this like a black baby or a white baby or a mixed baby, and
Yeah,
then like people even arguing was Noah a albino child. So, but those are something we'll discuss in the future because it's like we want to show like reports and books on it and talk about it too because it's like we ain't no book club for no reason.
right. So after all of this, Abimelech and his chief captain spoke to Abraham, and they acknowledged that God was with Abraham, and they asked him to deal with them fairly. Abraham did swear that he would deal with them fairly, and he scolded Abimelech because of a water well that was taken away by Abimelech's servants violently. Abimelech said that he honestly did not know of such a thing until Abraham brought it to his attention. Abraham paid Abimelech in sheep and oxen, and in addition to what Abraham gave him, Abraham set aside 7 lambs to witness to him digging a new well. And as a second payment and proof that Abraham dug this new well, and he called this place Beersheba, because there both Abraham and Abimelech both swore and renewed their covenant friendship. And they all returned to the land of the Philistines, and Abraham sojourned there many days. And this is from verse 33 in chapter
Hmm.
21. Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. So basically, um, Abraham, he put a tree there. I guess that's what you could say for a grove. But basically, he did his spiritual practices in that land, around Abimelech's people, basically showing them like this is how you work with the Lord. This is how you get into your spiritual practices. And I think it's really cool that Abraham was like, look, he paid Abimelech for the well that was taken, and then he gave him extra payment to say, now between me and you see, this is my well. I'm digging this well. um, and it's kind of like stuff as you read the interactions between Abimelech and Abraham. It's like a lot of stuff happens to where they could have just, what I mean, just turned on each other, but they really talked it out, and came to understanding like men should, you know. Um, because it was so many reasons for them to just start beefing with each other when you think about it. But they were able to talk it out. Um, Abraham is chosen by God, and Abimelech, through Abraham, is aware of the presence of God. In layman's terms, Abraham is a Hebrew and Abimelech is a Gentile, but this establishment of friendship is a foreshadowing of the Israelites serving humanity and being preservers of the word. This exemplifies when Abraham plants a tree and calls the name of the Lord in public. So, just to say it simply, the Israelites' purpose is to serve humanity, not to look at humanity and look down on and stand over humanity and look down on humanity. The Israelites have been chosen to preserve the word and make sure everyone learns the word. They're not chosen because they're better than anybody. They're chosen because they have a duty unto humanity to continuously raise the consciousness of humanity. It has nothing to do with being the chosen ones or better than somebody. That's all ego.
That's spiritual ego. Like
Yeah.
we get it, we get into this because sometimes it's not about the Afrocentrism, and like most people not even African, and even on
Mm-hmm.
top of it, it's just understanding about certain forgotten aspects of historical evidence, certain things that's been indoctrinated into people. So that's why you're gonna hear a lot of things concerning that. But also we really gotta remember like the key goal, returning to Eden. That is
Mm-hmm.
like when we think about anything that's apocalyptic or revelational, it's talking about ascending,
Mm-hmm.
understanding what's after death. Because that's like most time most people are scared of that when we bring it up or you talk about it, people deal with it. It's a hard topic, but honestly, how you deal with it shows with it every day to your day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm. So we get to Genesis 22, and this is a very, to me, I would say it's a very special chapter in Genesis. For one, 22 is the master builder number. It's 22 paths on the Kabbalah. Um, and it's a certain level of, it's kind of like a rites of passage number to me, and especially what's going to happen in this chapter. And it came to pass after these things that God spoke to Abraham and said, take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. Genesis 22, verse 2. In the early morning, Abraham and two of his young men headed for the place which God hath told him. Once they were close enough, Abraham and Isaac went ahead and left the two men behind. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father and said, my father. And he said, here I am, or here am I, my son. And he said, behold, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, my son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went, both of them together. Verse 7 and 8. And when they got to the place, God told Abraham to build an altar, and he laid the wood in order and bound Isaac his son and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And when Abraham stretched forth his hand to slay his son, the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of the place Jehovah Jireh, as it is said to this day, in the mount of the Lord it shall be seen. Verses 12 and 14. So, with this, the great thing about this is like from like Genesis 12, or I'll say like Genesis 13, all the way up to like Genesis 18, 19, Abraham has been just like, okay, when are you going to give me a son? Like, when am I going to have a son? And it got to a point where he trusted the Lord, but he didn't believe the Lord. Um, because in his mind, it was kind of like, it's no way. I'm an old man, my wife is old, there's no way. And then the fact that he actually had a son and was willing to sacrifice the son that he's been wanting all his life speaks volume to the, the level of faith that Abraham had, and the obedience that he had to God, i.e., his soul and ancestors.
My thing is like, can't like all these angels that come down and like speak to these men that God have chosen, and these heroes basically in the story. And like that's one thing that like you got to understand, like angels are like the divine providence of God. And I think that's something we got to like really have a short towards too, is like speaking about angels,
Mm-hmm.
understanding what they are, especially like where they originate from, what stories. And most angels talk about the angels come and talk to us, like we didn't invent angels. Angels came to us. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham out of heaven the second time, and said, By myself have I sworn, saith the Lord, for because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand which thou and as the sand which is upon the seashore. And thy seed shall possess the gates of his enemies, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned unto his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba. And Abraham dwelt in Beersheba. Is once again like the line that I like. It says, "And in thy seed shall all the nations of earth be blessed." Is once again pointing out that the Israelites' duty is to is basically to serve humanity.
And I feel like sometimes when we think about trying to find our purpose, you got to really be able to experience and walk through the road to find your purpose. Like it's your purpose to find it, and then once you find, it, you gotta live it.
Yeah.
But that's a journey though. Like we're all still going through that today. Like we might be on track and doing something, and then it might time for something to change. Like change is the only thing that's constant in life, and we gotta like be able to like adapt towards that because that is a key aspect into our spiritual journey that we must learn. And these stories show that through the constant travel through these lands, constant meeting into with these kings, expanding the God, the story of God, and these interactions with the divine providence, and most of those things change in the New Testament. So it's like we have to focus on them now and then understand why this change happens.
Hmm. This was a major test for Abraham to be told by God to sacrifice his only son, who he waited 100 years for. Sounds crazy. Abraham was obedient and steadfast in his faith. Although Isaac was conceived through the help of the Lord, he represents the joy and happiness experienced from sense consciousness. So really just waiting for something when you want to manifest something and you finally get it is kind of like you proud of it, because you worked hard for it. You were disciplined enough to allow it to even be manifested.
Yeah, imagine if you was thinking on something. You had 9 hours the whole day to think on this one thing and build upon it. Would you think it'll come true?
That's a good question.
Like
Because we
10 hours, like sitting somewhere, and then like you probably doing the thing that could cause it to happen because you're so worried and frustrated.
hmm
It's like can attentions like really save us? You know?
hmm and then this last slide or this last point, um, is Abraham truly attached to sense consciousness or not? And is he willing to let go in service to divine law? Just rhetorical question. Sometimes the best experiences in life come out of places that make us uncomfortable, or at times we inhibit our growth by not listening to our intuition.
Hmm.
Um, so, with that, I mean, that's the conclusion to this episode. Anything you want to say, AD?
Yeah, I really want to after the show bring up a major iconic card that I feel like that relates to this story and one we can think about in our personal lives too. So while I'm pulling it up,
Okay.
anybody can throw questions in the chat. We really want to be involved with people, have people join Discord and be a part of the book club and just chat about the books they read and chat about other stories and things related and other books that concern this chapter and talk about it deeply because the rabbit hole just keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper. But that rabbit hole comes with a guide though, because your soul is the guide to the rabbit hole. But I'm not gonna always tell you that your intuition will. But this card right here and the Hebrew card that we're talking about deals with the Thoth, and it's literally like a powerful card because it just talks about something so simple, so like, man, if you get this card in the reading, like,
You got to put the card up.
yeah, I'm trying to. My fault.
Oh, okay. I thought you had it up already.
Nah, yeah, I'm just trying to hype it up.
No, no, no. Yeah. Okay.
Nah, you good. All right, but go to StreamYard, hit present. So the card that we have here is the Chariot, right? Now, first and foremost, before I just like get to talking about the card a little bit, just this card just represents the journey, right? Because one, chariots come up when Ezekiel was picked up. You got, you people wonder how Enoch walked with God. So when we think about chariots, the person in this vehicle is not the one controlling it. The chariot only controls himself, his
Hmm.
emotions, his meditation, working with the kundalini. Whereas in the sphinxes control the chariot. So, and the only way that you can really like have control in a chariot is just being able to enjoy the ride. That's the only way you have control for the chariot. But we also got to think about the Hebrew letter here, and that Hebrew letter is Cheth.
Yeah, check. Right. Or
And when
tech.
we think about Cheth, Cheth is a fence or field, like with a Cheth with a ch,
Hmm.
CHEH, and it's like a fence or field. So when we got to think about, we have to destroy the things that's holding us back, the barriers that lie in the way of our progress. And then like spiritually, we have to become attuned because that is the goal in mind. Because this also represents Noah's Ark, right? Being able to be above the waves, retreating within and finding a passage. Pairing, you have to, everything pairing with one, the self, pairing yourself with your soul, the counter and the opposite, the duality within yourself. So that's pretty much it. Like, I'm not gonna beat your head too much, but I just want to at least talk about some tarot today because these stories just talk about it in simple ways, and dealing with the
Yeah,
numbers and understanding the deep connections with the numbers is the key.
for
But
sure.
you got anything you want to say on it, bro?
Yeah, just just simply being led, you know, allowing yourself to be led by soul and understanding that your job is I mean it's to take direction, to put it simply, it's your job to take direction from soul, um, and to have faith.
Ashe. Well, that contains the show for today. We'll have more coming up. Be on the lookout. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on the Facebook. Join the Discord, and you'll be able to keep up with all the information. Beware the Patreon coming soon, just so we can talk about deep things and not get hit with the guidelines and stuff, just to show some cool things. And along with you join the Patreon, you'll get some cool deals along with that. And just to help support the book club, appreciate us. Check out the link tree, check out Bree's link tree, book a reading with us, come talk with us, come really like lock in with this, man, because as we doing this goal and journey, it's about helping each other and realizing that it's not about what you know, is who you know. So,
Yeah.
peace and family, and thank you for watching.
Peace.